Hello everyone, today I'm going to be talking about Proto-Human, my entry for the third circus for So what is Proto-Human? Well, Proto-Human is a hypothesized language ancestral to all modern human languages. It's a fairly controversial concept for a variety of reasons amongst mainstream linguistics, but don't worry about that. I know that Proto-Human exists because I speak it, or at least a version of it, but we'll get to that in a moment. Just trust the process. So, we can all agree that the ancestors of languages can be reconstructed, like Proto-Indo-European, a very famous example. Now, generally, historical linguists don't tend to reconstruct languages older than a few thousand years old, and they cite a few reasons for this, like time depth and the scarcity of evidence going that far back in the past. But the thing is, they're lying about those things. The real reason that they don't look into it is that they're cowards. Now, we all can agree that humans descended from a common ancestor thousands of years ago. If humans are descended from a common ancestor and all humans have language, then it stands to reason that all human languages also descended from a common ancestor. By looking at our current reconstructed proto-languages, like Proto-Indo-European, Proto-Parman-Yungan, Proto-Afroasiatic, etc., we can in turn reconstruct their hypothetical last common ancestor. And if we can do that with every language, then we'll surely soon have the last common ancestor for every human language. Now, you might think that the total absence of concrete linguistic evidence further back in time than 5,000 years would mean that it would be impossible to reconstruct the ancestor of every living language. You might also think that given the potential thousands upon thousands of languages that were probably spoken throughout history and went totally unrecorded, that it would be irrational to think we could reconstruct the ancestor of all human language based only on the living and dead languages we have evidence of, which themselves likely make up only a tiny fraction of all human languages to ever have existed. Well, if you think those things, then you're wrong. This method is logically sound, it is cogent, it has no problems, it is airtight. Just trust the process. So let's get on to the history here. Now, as you all might know, although there's no shame in admitting that you used to be a sheep, the aliens who landed at Atlantis gave us a variety of gifts, including language. The first language ever spoken on Earth was spoken by aliens who landed in Atlantis thousands of years ago. They taught the ancient humans how to speak their language, and that is how the original language, Proto-Human, came to be. Now, the only reason this might be hard for you to believe is because that's how Big Ling wants you to think. It's all a conspiracy! Wake up, sheeple! That's just what they want you to think! Curse you, Noam Chomsky!
A few months ago, I was running in this park in Western Australia when I tripped over and ate shit on a bollard. When I woke, I found myself enlightened, or as the doctors said, heavily concussed, and I had been imbued with cosmic knowledge, or as they insisted on calling it, grandiose delusions. When I woke up, I found myself able to speak a language that no one could identify.
I spent the next few months after this incident endeavoring to teach myself linguistics in order to figure out what had happened to me. I eventually discovered Altaic, and after that found myself faced with the concept of the Proto-Human language. The particular bollard that I hit my head on was positioned here in Inglewood, Western Australia. The exact antipode of this point is just to the east of the island of Bermuda, which is famously part of the Bermuda Triangle. And we all know the significance of the Bermuda Triangle.
I soon realized, due to the obvious celestial significance of the bollard that I donked my noggin on, that the language I had been imbued with was the language spoken by the aliens who landed at Atlantis millions of years ago. And therefore, the language that I had been imbued with was the original human language.
Now, there are two registers of this language that I'm talking about. There is Atlantean, the original form of the language spoken by the aliens who landed at Atlantis, and then there is Proto-Human, the original human language that we are able to reconstruct. Now, these might sound like two completely different languages, but the truth is that Proto-Human is a bastardized form of Atlantean that was passed down from the aliens. Any differences between them are due to imperfect acquisition or anatomical/temporal differences between aliens and humans. For a full description of the phonemic correspondences and discrepancies between Proto-Human and Atlantean, please refer to the ancillary document. Please also see the ancillary document for the details of this phonetic reconstruction with which I'm about to present you. We can see here that Proto-Human had 5 phonemic vowels, I, E, A, O, U, with a long-short length distinction. It also had 3 vowel qualities, modal or plain A, creaky A, and pharyngeal A. We can also see the consonants of Proto-Human. M, N, P, T, C, K, K, B, D, D, G, G, P, T, K, K, B, D, D, K, K, fa, th, sa, sh, sh, ra, ra, la, ra, ya, wa. We can see the fingerprints of these sounds in many modern languages. For example, the complex stop distinctions of Proto-Human clearly correlate to those of Proto-Parmanungan and Proto-Indo-European. The three vowel qualities evidently became tone in languages like Chinese and African. And the weird bits explain why languages like French sound so weird. Now, the phonology of Atlantean, the original language from which Proto-Human originated, is a little bit more complex. Like I said before, humans weren't anatomically capable of producing all the same sounds as the aliens. I, however, was imbued with the knowledge of these sounds, as well as the rest of the Atlantean register, when my head impacted the bollard. In addition to all the vowel distinctions of Proto-Human, Atlantean also had three additional vowel qualities. On top of modal R, creaky R, and pharyngeal R, there was also ventricular R, rhotic R, and ingressive R. There are also an additional series of consonants that are largely too difficult and complex for humans to produce. These are ta, and ha. Another interesting aspect of the phonology of these languages was their timing. So Proto-Human, like languages like Japanese today, which retain this feature, was a mora-timed language. In other words, each sound or sequence of sounds occupied a certain amount of morae. Atlantean timing is much more complex, however, because aliens are capable of simultaneously occupying multiple points in time. Word order works a little bit differently between Proto-Human and Atlantean. In Proto-Human, say we've got three words here in both languages. 1 ABC, 2 DEF, and 3 GHI. In Proto-Human, what we would do is we would assign each of these words syntactic functions, and we would rearrange them so that the subject came first, then the object, and then the verb. And we would keep this word order strict because we need to know what the subject and object are. Of course, Proto-Human was analytical, so the only way that we really have of knowing which is with the order of the words. So, a strict SOV word order in Proto-Human. It works a little bit differently in Atlantean, however, because aliens, like I've said before, can occupy multiple points in time simultaneously. So how we would do this if we were speaking in the Atlantean register is that we would say the first sound of every word all at once, followed by the second all at the same time, and then the third sound of each word all at the same time. And all of these words are the same length, but you can do it with words of varying length, and the sentence essentially lasts as long as the longest word. Effectively, the way that would sound would be an A, a D, and a G said all at once, a B, an E, and an H said all at once, and a C, and an F, and an I said all at once. And you'll probably notice that this is a little bit hard to parse, because, of course, you could get the correct word ABC from this, but you could also just as well get AEI, and that would just be wrong. So how do they tell what they're saying? Well, aliens can sense something that we can't. And I say we, I mean the rest of you. I can sense it because I'm chosen. Aliens have something called a zeef. Aliens can perceive zeef, and what they do is they assign each word a specific zeef value, so that when all of the different phones show up in the jumble, you can tell which word they belong to because of their zeef. All of the different phones belonging to one word will all have the same zeef, and that's how they keep track of all the words. Now, of course, I can't demonstrate zeef to you in the spoken sample, so I'll just notate it with color in the transcription. I'm quickly running out of time, so I'll just tell you that the grammar is analytic, not synthetic.
Thank you very much for watching, and I am very glad to have imbued you with free thought for the first time in your life, no doubt. Do come back for my next documentary, Anachronistic Aliens. And I hope that you can come away from this, not just having learned about the language of the aliens, but perhaps being a little bit better at free thinking.
Alright, out of character now. Thank you all so much for watching. This video was a lot of fun to make, and I hope it's also been a lot of fun to watch. I made a submission last year for the Cursed Conlang Circus, Zaz, which was also horrible, so do check that out if you've enjoyed this. And if you like linguistics, my actual normal content is like educational, real linguistics, so check that out as well if you're interested in that. Alright, I think that's everything. Enjoy the sample!
Nga sa Juan stak thutsen. Sich nithol tab John. Nkir singolig fnungaun bes ngad ngang tab knifti. Nga bes ngop sail takshen. Juan's nga se rodo thutsen.
Ah.